Mother Bear hijacked a school bus to rescue. One sleeping infant. Drivers couldn't believe their eyes. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy of pine trees, casting dappled shadows across the winding mountain road. Savannah Reed checked her rearview mirror for the 5th time in as many minutes, her eyes lingering on the sleeping infant in the specialized car seat at the back of the school bus. 6-month-old Emma, the daughter of her colleague, breathed softly in peaceful slumber, unaware of the adventure that had begun as a simple field trip to Whispering Pines Nature Reserve. "Miss Reed, look, a deer!" called out Jacob Bennett, his 10-year-old face pressed against the window. The other children from Pinecrest Elementary rushed to the right side of the bus, their excited whispers filling the previously quiet space. Savannah smiled, slowing the bus slightly to allow the children a better view. The field trip had been a success. 23 fourth graders exploring the nature reserve, learning about local wildlife, and enjoying the unseasonably warm April afternoon. Now, as the shadows grew longer, they were heading back to school where parents would be waiting. "Remember what Ranger Mike told us about respecting wildlife from a distance," Savannah reminded them, her voice gentle but firm. She glanced again at baby Emma, relieved to see the infant still sleeping soundly despite the children's excitement. Bringing her colleague's baby had been unplanned, an emergency childcare situation, but the school principal had authorized it given the circumstances. What Savannah didn't know was that 3 miles ahead, where the road curved sharply between 2 steep hillsides, another mother was experiencing a very different kind of afternoon. The massive grizzly bear paced anxiously at the edge of the forest, her powerful muscles rippling beneath thick brown fur. Local rangers called her Willow, and she was well known in these parts for being unusually intelligent and fiercely protective of her cubs. Today, something was wrong. Her youngest cub, barely 4 months old, had disappeared during their afternoon foraging. Willow's acute senses had tracked the scent to this strange clearing, where the forest gave way to a strip of black stone that humans traversed in their loud metal beasts. Willow lifted her head, catching a familiar scent on the breeze. Her cub, but the scent was mixed with something unfamiliar, human, children, and strange chemical smells. Her maternal instincts surged, overwhelming her usual caution around human territories. Back on the bus, Lily Morgan, a quiet girl with observant eyes and a passion for wildlife, noticed something strange under her seat. At first, she thought it was someone's stuffed animal, forgotten in the excitement of the day. But when she bent down to retrieve it, she froze. "Miss Reed," she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. I think there's a bear cub on the bus." Before Savannah could respond, a shadow fell across the road ahead, massive, unmistakable, and blocking their path entirely. The children's excited chatter died instantly as the enormous grizzly bear rose to its full height, almost 8 feet tall, directly in the middle of the road. Savannah slammed on the brakes, her heart hammering against her ribs. The bus skidded slightly before coming to a complete stop, now just 30 feet from the bear. The children gasped collectively, some shrinking back in fear, others leaning forward in fascination. "Nobody move," Savannah whispered, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Nobody make a sound." But the warning came too late. The sudden stop had jostled baby Emma awake, and the infant let out a startled cry that echoed through the bus. The bear's head swiveled toward the sound, dark eyes locking on the yellow school bus. Then, with a determination that sent chills down Savannah's spine, The enormous creature dropped to all fours and began moving purposefully toward them. The radio crackled with static as Savannah fumbled for it, her hands trembling. "Base, this is Bus 17. We have an emergency situation on Pinecrest Road. There's a bear." Her words caught in her throat as she watched the bear approach, its massive paws leaving imprints in the soft shoulder of the road. Emma's cries grew louder, piercing the tense silence, and beneath one of the seats hidden from most eyes a small furry creature stirred in response. The mother bear was now just 15 feet from the bus and showed no signs of backing down. Savannah's mind raced through her limited knowledge of bear encounters. Make noise, look big, back away slowly. But none of those strategies applied when trapped inside a school bus with 23 children and a crying infant. She tried the radio again, but the mountains blocked the signal, returning only crackling static. "Everyone, stay in your seats," she instructed, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Jacob, come up here and hold the radio. Keep trying to reach someone. Lily, tell me exactly what you saw." Lily crept forward between the rows of seats, her eyes never leaving the floor where she'd spotted the furry intruder. "It's under seat 14, Miss Reed. It's small and brown, and it's definitely alive. I think it crawled onto the bus when we stopped for lunch at the picnic area." Connor Adams, a freckle-faced boy with glasses too large for his face, leaned over cautiously. "She's right, Miss Reed. I can see it breathing. It looks scared." Outside, the mother bear lowered her massive head, sniffing the ground before raising her snout toward the bus. Her powerful shoulders rolled as she took another step forward, pressing one enormous paw against the pavement. "The bear cub must have been attracted to our food," whispered Haley Dawson, the class science enthusiast. "Remember how we all left our backpacks on the bus during the hike? My mom packed me honey sandwiches." The realization rippled through the bus. Their lunch leftovers had inadvertently lured a bear cub aboard, and now its mother had come to reclaim it. Emma's cries intensified, her tiny face flushed with distress. Savannah unbuckled her seatbelt, torn between staying at the wheel and going to comfort the infant. Just as she stood, ready to make her way to the back, the bear charged. It wasn't a full attack, just a short, powerful lunge that stopped several feet from the bus. But it was enough to send the children screaming, pressing themselves against the windows farthest from the beast. The sudden movement and noise startled the bear cub, which darted from its hiding place in panic. "There it is!" shouted Michael Hayes, pointing as the small brown form scampered down the aisle. The cub was indeed tiny, no larger than a small dog, with soft brown fur and frightened eyes. It paused momentarily in the center of the bus, confused by the unfamiliar surroundings and the screaming children. Then, as if drawn by some invisible force, it bounded toward the back of the bus, straight to where Emma lay wailing in her car seat. "No!" Savannah lunged forward, but she was too far away. The children watched in horror as the bear cub reached the infant. But what happened next defied all expectations. The tiny bear didn't attack. Instead, it pressed itself against the side of Emma's car seat, making soft whimpering sounds that almost mimicked the baby's cries. Emma, startled by the furry creature, abruptly stopped crying, her wide blue eyes fixed on the cub with an expression of wonder rather than fear. Outside, the mother bear's behavior changed. She stopped charging and tilted her head, listening intently to the sounds from within the bus. Her aggressive stance softened slightly, though she remained firmly planted in their path. "It's not trying to hurt her," Lily whispered, her voice filled with amazement. I think it's trying to comfort her." As improbable as it seemed, the bear cub had curled up beside Emma's car seat, its small form rising and falling with each breath. The infant, fascinated by her unusual visitor, reached out a tiny hand toward the cub's fur. "Don't let her touch it," warned Avery Johnson, a girl with practical sensibilities who sat near the back. "Wild animals can carry diseases." Savannah moved carefully toward the back of the bus, torn between protecting Emma from the wild animal and preventing panic that might provoke the mother bear outside. The situation seemed impossible. A bear cub seeking refuge beside a human infant, while its powerful mother prepared to do whatever necessary to retrieve her child. Just then, a cracking sound drew everyone's attention to the front door of the bus. The mother bear had risen again to her hind legs and placed her front paws against the folding door, testing its strength. The metal groaned under her weight. "The door won't hold if she really wants in," Jacob said, his voice cracking with fear. As if confirming his assessment, the bear dropped back to all fours and circled the bus, examining it from all angles. She stopped at each window, rising up to peer inside, searching for her cub. When she reached the back where Emma and the cub rested, she paused longer, her intelligent eyes taking in the scene. "She knows," whispered Lily. "She knows her baby is in here with Emma." The radio in Jacob's hand suddenly crackled to life. "Bus 17, this is base. Do you copy? We've received reports of bear activity on Pinecrest Road. What's your status?" The mother bear's head snapped toward the sound, her ears flattening against her skull. Jacob froze, afraid to respond. Savannah gestured frantically for him to hand her the radio, which he did with trembling fingers. "This is Bus 17, Savannah replied in a hushed voice. "We have a situation. There's a mother bear outside our bus, and somehow her cub got on board during our stop at the nature reserve. We're stranded on Pinecrest Road about 3 miles from the main entrance. The bear is preventing us from moving." "Copy that, Bus 17. Rangers are being dispatched to your location. Estimated arrival time, 20 minutes. Can you safely remain in position until then?" Savannah looked from the determined mother bear outside to the cub curled beside baby Emma. "We don't have much choice, but please hurry. We have 23 children and an infant on board." As she set the radio down, a new sound cut through the tense atmosphere. A sharp crack, followed by the distant rumble of an engine. From around the bend came a large pickup truck, driving too fast for the winding road. The driver, a man in a flannel shirt and baseball cap, saw the bus and the bear too late. He swerved hard, tires squealing on the pavement. The mother bear, startled by the sudden noise and movement, let out a terrifying roar and charged toward the truck. The driver overcorrected, sending his vehicle into a skid that ended with the truck's front end smashing into a tree at the side of the road. The collision happened in seconds. Metal crunching, glass shattering, the truck's horn blaring continuously as the driver slumped against the steering wheel. And in the chaotic aftermath, the mother bear disappeared into the underbrush at the side of the road. "Is she gone?" asked Connor, his voice barely audible above the truck's incessant honking. "The driver needs help," Savannah said, her professional training kicking in. She turned to Michael Hayes, the most level-headed of her students. "Michael, take the radio, keep the children calm, and keep trying to reach base. Tell them we now have an injured driver as well. I need to check if he's okay." "But the bear," Michael protested. "The bear ran into the woods," Savannah replied, though uncertainty tinged her voice. "And that man needs help now." As Savannah prepared to exit the bus, Lily's voice stopped her. "Miss Reed, what about the bear cub? We can't just leave it with Emma." Savannah looked back at the peculiar scene. The bear cub still huddled against Emma's car seat, the infant now patting the air excitedly as she observed her unusual companion. The situation defied all logic, but she didn't have time to figure it out now. "Avery," she called to the practical-minded girl. "Can you watch them both? Just make sure Emma doesn't actually touch the cub, and make sure the cub stays calm." Avery nodded solemnly, moving to sit beside the car seat while keeping a respectful distance from the wild animal. Savannah took a deep breath and opened the bus door, stepping out into the late afternoon air. The truck's horn continued to blare, echoing through the mountains. She approached cautiously, scanning the tree line for any sign of the mother bear, but saw nothing except disturbed underbrush where the massive animal had disappeared. The truck had hit the tree head-on, its hood crumpled like accordion paper. As Savannah drew closer, she could see the driver moving slightly. Alive, at least. She quickened her pace. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man groaned, raising his head from the steering wheel. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, but his eyes were alert. "Bear," he mumbled. "There was a bear in the road." "I know," Savannah said, reaching through the shattered window to turn off the ignition and silence the horn. "Are you hurt badly? Can you move?" The sudden silence seemed deafening after the constant honking. In that silence, Savannah heard something that made her blood run cold. The unmistakable sound of heavy breathing and the snap of twigs underfoot. She turned slowly, her heart hammering in her chest. There, emerging from the tree line not 20 feet away, was the mother bear, and this time she looked angry. Back on the bus, the children watched in horror as the bear reappeared behind their teacher. Michael grabbed the radio, his hand shaking. "Emergency! The bear is back and Miss Reed is outside with the injured driver." Inside the bus, the bear cub suddenly became agitated, responding to its mother's distress. It made a high-pitched whining sound and began to pace at the back of the bus. Emma, startled by the change, began to cry again. "What do we do?" Avery asked, panic rising in her voice as she looked from the frightened cub to the unfolding scene outside. Lily Morgan, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. I think the mother bear is trying to protect her baby, just like Miss Reed is trying to protect us. Maybe they're not so different." As Savannah stood frozen between the injured driver and the advancing bear, the situation had reached a critical point. Help was still minutes away, and the lives of everyone involved, children, baby, driver, and bears, hung precariously in the balance. Time seemed to slow, as Savannah's mind calculated her limited options. The truck driver couldn't run. His leg was clearly injured from the impact. The bus was 30 feet away, too far to reach before the bear could catch her. And the bear, now on all fours with her head lowered, looked ready to charge, protecting what she perceived as a threat to her missing cub. "Don't move," Savannah whispered to the driver without turning her head. "Bears can run faster than humans. If we startle her, we're both in trouble." The man's breathing quickened, but he remained still, gripping his steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "What is it doing here? This close to the road?" Inside the bus, the children had crowded to the windows, their horrified faces pressed against the glass as they watched their teacher's standoff with the massive predator. Michael clutched the radio, desperately trying to reach help. The bear cub grew increasingly distressed, its whimpers matching Emma's cries. Then Lily Morgan did something unexpected. "We need to show the mother that her cub is safe," she announced, her voice surprisingly steady. Before anyone could stop her, she moved to the back of the bus where Avery sat protectively beside Emma and the frightened cub. "What are you doing?" Avery hissed. "Miss Reed said to keep them apart." "The mother needs to see her baby," Lily insisted. She reached toward the emergency exit at the rear of the bus, a window that could be pushed outward in case of emergency. "Lily, no!" Michael called from the front, but it was too late. Lily had already unlocked the emergency window, pushing it open just enough to create a gap. Then, with gentle hands that belied her nervousness, she reached for the bear cub. "Don't touch it," several children cried in unison. But Lily had spent countless hours reading about wildlife. She moved slowly, speaking in soft tones as she carefully slid her hands under the small creature. The cub squirmed but didn't bite, seemingly too frightened by the unfamiliar surroundings to fight back. "It's okay, little one," Lily murmured. "Your mom is looking for you." Outside, the dynamic shifted instantly. The mother bear's attention snapped to the back of the bus as her keen senses detected movement and the scent of her cub. She rose onto her hind legs again, towering almost 8 feet tall, her focus entirely redirected. Savannah saw her opportunity. "Sir, can you move at all?" she asked the truck driver. "My ankle, I think it's broken," he grimaced. "Name's Logan Carter. I haul supplies for the nature reserve. Never seen a bear act like this." "I'm going to help you," Savannah said, edging closer to his door. "We need to get you to the bus while the bear is distracted." Back at the rear of the bus, Lily had managed to lift the cub close to the open emergency window. The small animal became suddenly still, catching its mother's scent on the breeze. It let out a distinctive call, a sound between a whimper and a mewl that carried in the mountain air. The reaction was immediate. The mother bear dropped to all fours and charged, not toward Savannah and Logan, but straight for the back of the bus. Children screamed, scrambling away from the windows as the enormous creature barreled toward them. Savannah seized the moment. She yanked open the truck door and helped Logan slide out, supporting his weight as he hobbled on one foot. "Lean on me," she instructed. "We need to move now." They stumbled toward the bus door. Logan's face contorted in pain with each movement. Behind them, the mother bear had reached the rear of the bus and was now standing on her hind legs again, peering into the partially open emergency exit where Lily held the cub. "What is that girl doing?" Logan gasped as Savannah helped him up the bus steps. "Is she trying to get everyone killed?" "I think," Savannah said, breathing hard from supporting his weight, "she might be saving us all." At the back of the bus, a remarkable scene was unfolding. Lily had managed to hold the cub up to the window just enough for its mother to see. The massive bear made soft huffing sounds, pressing her nose against the small opening. The cub responded, wiggling excitedly in Lily's careful grip. "She just wants her baby back," Lily said, her voice trembling slightly now that she faced the full reality of the mother bear's intimidating presence. "We need to let the cub go." "Are you crazy?" Avery protested. "If you open that exit any wider, the mother could force her way in." Emma, who had been momentarily quiet, began to cry again. The bear cub responded with its own distressed sounds, struggling more vigorously in Lily's hands. Outside, the mother bear grew more agitated, her powerful paws pressing against the bus, rocking it slightly. With Logan now safely collapsed into the front seat of the bus, Savannah hurried toward the back, navigating the aisle filled with frightened children. "Lily, what are you doing?" she called, trying to keep panic from her voice. Lily turned, her face pale but determined. "Miss Reed, I think I know how to fix this, but you have to trust me." Something in the girl's quiet confidence made Savannah pause. Outside, the bear continued to huff and press against the emergency exit, the metal frame creaking under her strength. "We can't keep the cub," Lily continued. "It belongs with its mother, and I don't think the mother will leave without it." "But if we open the exit enough for the cub to get out," Savannah began. "The mother could get in," Lily finished. "I know. That's why we need a different plan." She glanced at the front of the bus, then back at Savannah. "Can we drive forward just a little bit?" Get some distance, then I can release the cub where it's safe. Savannah considered this. If they could create some space between the bus and the bear, perhaps they could safely release the cub without endangering everyone inside. She nodded slowly. Everybody hold on to something, she instructed, moving back toward the driver's seat. But before she could reach it, a new sound cut through the tension, the distant wail of sirens growing steadily louder. Help was finally arriving. The mother bear heard it too. Her massive head swiveled toward the sound, ears flattening in alarm. She dropped back to all fours, clearly agitated by this new threat. "The Rangers," Logan said from his seat, relief evident in his voice despite his pain. "They'll know how to handle this." But Lily shook her head, still holding the increasingly restless cub. "No, they'll scare her away or worse. She'll be more dangerous if she's frightened, and she'll keep coming back for her baby. We need to return the cub now, before they get here." "She's right," came a new voice. Everyone turned to see that the previously quiet Jacob Bennett had moved beside Lily. "My dad's a wildlife biologist. He says mother bears will do anything to protect their cubs. Anything." Outside, the mother bear backed away slightly, torn between the approaching sirens and her cub's scent. She paced in tight circles, occasionally rising to look in the bus's rear window, making distressed sounds. "Please, Miss Reed," Lily pleaded. "Let me give the cub back before the Rangers make things worse." Savannah looked from the approaching flashing lights in the distance to the desperate mother bear, to Lily's determined face, and finally to baby Emma, who had inexplicably stopped crying and was watching the bear cub with curious eyes. "Okay," she decided. "But we do this my way." She turned to address all the children. Everyone moved to the front half of the bus. Michael, Jacob, stay with Logan and make sure he's comfortable. Avery, take Emma and her car seat to the front as well. As the children followed her instructions, Savannah moved to the back of the bus with Lily, who still held the squirming cub. "I'm going to open the main door at the front," she explained. "When I do, the mother bear will likely investigate that sound. While she's distracted, we'll open the emergency exit wider and you'll place the cub on the ground. Then we close the exit immediately. Understand?" Lily nodded, her arms trembling slightly from the effort of holding the increasingly active cub. "Ms. Reed," Avery called from the front, where she was securing Emma's car seat. "There's something weird in the car seat. Some kind of toy, I think." "Not now, Avery," Savannah replied, focused on the task at hand. She moved to the front of the bus and placed her hand on the door lever. "Everyone ready?" The children nodded, their faces a mixture of fear and fascination. The sirens were getting closer, perhaps just a minute away now. "On 3, Savannah said. 1, 2, 3. She pushed the lever, and the front door of the bus folded open with a hydraulic hiss. As predicted, the mother bear immediately turned toward the sound, her massive form disappearing from the rear window as she lumbered around the side of the bus to investigate. "Now, Lily," Savannah called. At the back, Lily pushed the emergency exit open wider, struggling with its weight. Jacob, ignoring Savannah's instructions to stay in front, rushed to help her. Together they opened the exit enough for Lily to carefully lower the bear cub to the ground outside. "Go on," Lily whispered to the small creature. "Your mom is looking for you." The cub hesitated only a moment before scampering a few feet away, then stopping to look back at the bus with what almost seemed like confusion. It let out a small cry, not frightened now, but calling. "Close it," Savannah instructed, and Jacob and Lily quickly pulled the emergency exit shut, securing it just as the mother bear, alerted by her cub's call, came back into view. The reunion was immediate and touching. The mother bear approached her cub with surprising gentleness, sniffing it thoroughly before nudging it with her nose. The cub responded by pressing against her front legs, making soft sounds of recognition. Inside the bus, the children watched in awed silence. Even Emma, secure in her car seat at the front, seemed captivated by the scene, her tiny hands reaching toward the windows. "Miss Reed," Avery called again, more urgently this time. "I really think you should see this." Savannah, relieved that the bear situation appeared to be resolving, finally turned her attention to Avery. "What is it?" Avery held up something small and brown from inside Emma's car seat, something that had been hidden in the folds of the blanket. "I think there's another one." The blood drained from Savannah's face as she realized what Avery was holding. A second bear cub, even smaller than the first, barely the size of a kitten. It squirmed weakly in Avery's hands, making pitiful sounds. "Two cubs," Savannah breathed. "There were two of them all along." Outside, the mother bear suddenly became alert again. Her ears perked up as she caught the sound of her second cub's cries coming from inside the bus. The sirens were now very close, perhaps just around the bend in the road. "What do we do?" Jacob asked, his voice cracking. "We can't open the exit again. She's right there watching us." Savannah's mind raced. If the rangers arrived and saw the bear so close to the bus, they might use tranquilizers or worse to subdue her. But with a second cub still on board, the mother wouldn't leave, and might become even more desperate to get inside. Just then, Logan called from the front seat. "The rangers are here." "I can see their trucks." Two green ranger vehicles had indeed appeared around the bend, lights flashing. They stopped 100 yards away, and uniformed figures emerged, assessing the situation. "They're going to shoot her," Lily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "They'll think she's threatening us." Savannah made a split-second decision. She grabbed the radio from Michael. "This is Bus 17 to Rangers. We have a code wildlife." It wasn't a real code, but she hoped it would make them listen. "There is a mother bear and one cub behind our bus. We have accidentally separated the mother from her second cub, which is still on board. Please hold your position and do not approach. We are attempting to safely reunite the family." There was a pause before the radio crackled back to life. "Copy that, Bus 17. What's your status otherwise?" "Any injuries?" "One injured male, Logan Carter. Possible broken ankle from a collision with the tree. Children and infant all safe." "Understood. We'll hold position but be prepared to intervene. Keep us updated." Savannah turned her attention back to the second cub, which was now crying more insistently in Avery's careful grip. Outside, the mother bear was growing increasingly agitated, pacing back and forth behind the bus, occasionally rising to peer into the windows, clearly responding to her second baby's cries. "If we open any exit now, she'll charge in," Logan warned from the front. "She knows exactly where that second cub is." Emma began to cry again, perhaps disturbed by the cub's distressed sounds. As Avery tried to juggle both the infant's car seat and the squirming cub, she nearly dropped the small animal. "Careful!" Lily exclaimed, rushing forward to help. In the chaos of the moment, no one noticed that Haley Dawson, the science enthusiast, had been quietly watching the bear's behavior. She suddenly spoke up, her voice thoughtful. "Ms. Reed, I have an idea." All eyes turned to her as she continued. "Bears have an incredible sense of smell, right? That's probably how the mother knew her cubs were here in the first place. What if we use that?" "What are you suggesting?" Savannah asked, intrigued despite the tension. Haley pointed to her backpack. "I still have my honey sandwich in there. What if we use the honey to create a path?" We could make a trail from the front door round to the back of the bus where the first cub is. Maybe the mother would follow it, and then we could safely open the emergency exit just enough to put the second cub out. It was a risky plan, potentially bringing the bear right to the main entrance of the bus, but it might just work to move the bear away from the emergency exit long enough to reunite her with her second cub. That might actually work, Savannah said slowly, but we'll need to coordinate perfectly. She picked up the radio again and quickly explained the plan to the Rangers, who reluctantly agreed to continue holding their position. "I'll handle the honey," volunteered Connor, retrieving Haley's sandwich from her backpack. "My grandpa keeps bees. I know how to work with honey without making a mess. And I'll take the cub to the emergency exit," Lily offered. Avery carefully handed the tiny second cub to Lily, then focused on keeping Emma calm in her car seat. The infant had become surprisingly quiet again, watching the unfolding scene with wide, curious eyes. "Everyone else, stay away from the windows and doors," Savannah instructed. "Connor, be extremely careful. Just open the door enough to squeeze the honey out onto the steps and ground." Connor nodded, extracting the honey-soaked bread from Haley's sandwich. With trembling hands, he approached the front door where Savannah stood ready to operate the lever. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," Connor confirmed. Savannah opened the door just enough for Connor to reach through. He squeezed the honey-soaked bread, letting the sticky golden liquid drip onto the steps of the bus and then onto the ground outside. The sweet scent filled the air immediately. "Now, make a trail leading around toward the back," Savannah instructed, keeping her voice low. Connor squeezed more honey onto the ground, creating a golden path that led away from the door and curved toward the rear of the bus. When he'd used up all the honey, Savannah quickly closed the door again. "Now we wait," she whispered. It didn't take long. The mother bear, still pacing anxiously behind the bus, suddenly lifted her head, her nostrils flaring as she caught the scent of honey. She hesitated, torn between the honey trail and the sounds of her second cub. "Come on," Haley murmured. "Follow the honey." Slowly, cautiously, the mother bear began to follow the sweet scent, moving away from her position behind the bus and following Connor's honey trail around toward the front. Her first cub trailed behind her, occasionally stopping to lick at the sticky substance. "She's moving," Jacob reported, watching through a side window. "She's following the trail." "Lily, get ready," Savannah instructed, moving toward the back of the bus where Lily stood with the second cub. Together, they positioned themselves at the emergency exit, waiting until the mother bear had moved far enough away to safely open it. Through the windows, they could see her massive form following the honey trail, now approximately halfway to the front of the bus. "Now," Savannah said, helping Lily push open the emergency exit once more. But just as they began to lower the second cub toward freedom, a gunshot cracked through the air, echoing off the mountains. Everyone froze. The mother bear reared up in alarm, her massive form silhouetted against the late afternoon sun. The first cub scampered behind her, seeking protection. Inside the bus, the children ducked instinctively, some crying out in fear. "What was that?" Savannah gasped, still holding the emergency exit partly open with Lily beside her clutching the second cub. Through the front windshield they could see a new figure emerging from the woods on the opposite side of the road. A man in hunting camouflage, rifle raised. He was taking aim for a second shot. "No!" Savannah screamed, though she knew he couldn't hear her from this distance. The radio crackled urgently. "Bus 17, we heard gunfire." "What's your situation?" Logan grabbed the radio from the front seat. "There's a hunter. He's shooting at the bear." The ranger's response was immediate. "We're moving in now, Everyone stay inside the bus." The mother bear, panicked by the gunshot but unwilling to abandon her cub's scent, was torn between fleeing into the forest and continuing toward the bus. She made a distressed huffing sound that carried through the mountain air. "The hunter is going to kill her," Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face, "and her cubs will be orphaned." The second cub in her arms, as if sensing the danger, began to cry more urgently. Its sounds carried through the partially open emergency exit, drawing the mother bear's attention back to the bus despite her fear of the hunter. In the front seat, Logan Carter made a sudden decision. Despite his injured ankle, he pulled himself up and reached into his jacket, pulling out a small two-way radio different from the school bus radio. "I work for the reserve," he explained to the startled children around him. "This connects directly to the head ranger." He pressed the transmit button. "Mike, it's Logan. I'm on the school bus with the bear situation. There's an unauthorized hunter taking shots at the mother bear. We need immediate intervention. The bear has cubs, one outside, one still on the bus." A gruff voice responded immediately. "Copy that, Logan. Ranger Martinez is approaching the hunter now. Keep that bus sealed tight." Through the windows, they could see one of the ranger vehicles speeding up the road toward the hunter, who had paused to reload his rifle. The man looked up in surprise as the ranger vehicle skidded to a stop between him and his target. "He's going to keep that hunter busy," Logan reported. "But we still need to get that second cub out safely before the mother runs off." Savannah nodded, turning back to the emergency exit where Lily still held the second cub. "We need to do this now, while the mother is still focused on the bus and before she decides to flee from the hunter." But as they prepared to lower the cub again, a new complication arose. The bus's radio crackled with an urgent bulletin. "Attention, all vehicles in the Whispering Pines area. Flash flood warning issued for Lower Pine Creek Road. Recent rainfall in the mountains has caused sudden water level rise. All vehicles must evacuate immediately." Savannah's heart sank. Pine Creek Road was their only way back to town. If they delayed much longer, they could be stranded overnight in the mountains with 23 children, an infant, an injured man, and a hungry mother bear circling their bus. "Now what?" Jacob asked, the fear evident in his voice. Outside, the confrontation between the ranger and the hunter was heating up. The hunter was gesturing angrily, pointing toward the bear, while the ranger stood firmly between them, hand on his holster. "We have to get this cub out now and then leave immediately," Savannah decided. "Lily, are you ready?" The girl nodded, her hands steady despite the tears on her face. Together, they opened the emergency exit wider, and Lily carefully extended her arms, the tiny cub secured in her grip. The mother bear, still alarmed by the hunter's presence but drawn by her maternal instincts, began moving back toward the bus. Her first cub followed hesitantly, staying close to her massive form. "Lower it gently," Savannah instructed. "Then we close the exit immediately." Lily stretched as far as she safely could, then released the second cub onto the ground. It tumbled slightly before finding its footing, immediately letting out a high-pitched call to its mother. The response was instantaneous. The mother bear charged toward her second baby, covering the distance with shocking speed. Savannah yanked Lily back inside, slamming the emergency exit shut just as the massive bear reached her second cub. Through the window they watched as mother and babies reunited, a touching scene that brought tears to everyone's eyes. The mother bear gently nuzzled each cub in turn, checking them thoroughly as if making sure they were unharmed. The cubs pressed close to her massive form, their tiny bodies trembling with relief. For several moments the bear family remained there, illuminated by the golden light of the setting sun, a portrait of wild love that none of them would ever forget. Then, just before turning to leave, the mother bear paused. She lifted her head toward the bus, her eyes meeting Savannah's through the glass. In that moment, something passed between them, an understanding that transcended words, species, and the barriers of their different worlds. Two mothers, each doing whatever necessary to protect their young. Savannah felt tears spill down her cheeks as she lifted her hand in a silent farewell. The bear held her gaze for one more heartbeat before turning away, her cubs following close behind as she disappeared into the shelter of the forest. She knew, Lily whispered, her own face streaked with tears. She knew we were trying to help. The children remained silent, watching the empty space where the bears had stood, each processing in their own way the extraordinary thing they had witnessed. Not just a wild animal encounter, but a moment of connection between their world and the wilderness. In the front seat, Emma had fallen asleep again, her tiny face peaceful, unaware of the danger they had all just navigated. Logan watched the sleeping infant with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said softly to Savannah, "I've worked in these mountains for 15 years, seen all kinds of things. But I never understood until today what we share with these creatures we're so afraid of." The rangers approached cautiously, having witnessed the bear family's retreat. The female ranger at the lead holstered her tranquilizer gun, her face showing relief mixed with disbelief. "In 20 years of wildlife management," she said as she reached the bus, "I've never seen anything like that. You all just rewrote everything we think we know about bear-human interactions." As the rangers organized their evacuation, the flash flood warning still urgent, Savannah gathered her children together. Their faces showed exhaustion, tear streaks, and a touch of something else. Wonder. "Before we leave," she said, "I want you all to remember what happened today. Not the scary parts, though. I know those might stay with you for a while." She paused, searching for the right words. "Remember instead what you saw at the end. That mother bear didn't want to hurt us. She just wanted her babies back, the same way I wanted to keep all of you safe. The same way Emma's mom would do anything for her," Avery added, glancing at the sleeping infant. "Exactly," Savannah nodded. "Sometimes the things we fear most are the things that make us most alike." As they boarded the ranger vehicles for their escort back to town, the bus deemed too risky with the flood warnings, Michael asked the question that had been forming in all their minds. "Ms. Reed, do you think they understand more than we think they do?" Savannah looked back toward the forest one last time. In the deepening shadows between the trees, she could have sworn she saw a large silhouette watching them, two smaller shapes at its side. "I think," she said carefully, "that today we were reminded of something important. That love, the kind that makes you brave, the kind that makes you protect what matters to you no matter the cost, that kind of love isn't just human. It belongs to the wilderness, too." The children fell silent, absorbing her words. Even the typically chatty Connor seemed lost in thought. As the ranger vehicles pulled away, leaving the empty school bus behind until it could be safely retrieved, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky above the mountains. Back in town, parents waited anxiously at the school, having been informed of the delay and the extraordinary reason for it. As the children disembarked, rushing into waiting arms with tails already spilling from their lips, Savannah stood back, watching the reunions with a full heart. Emma's mother pushed through the crowd, her face pale with worry, until she saw Savannah holding her daughter's car seat. She ran forward, gathering the still sleeping infant into her arms with a sob of relief. "Thank you," she whispered, holding Emma close. "I heard what happened, that you protected her from a bear." Savannah shook her head, smiling through her exhaustion. "I think," in a strange way, the bear was protecting her too. They both just wanted to keep their babies safe, just like you. That night, long after all the children had gone home, the questions answered, the statements given to rangers and local authorities, Savannah sat alone on her porch. The stars shone bright above the distant mountains where their adventure had unfolded. She thought about the mother bear, now safely reunited with her cubs in some den deep in the forest. She thought about the moment their eyes had met, and the understanding that had passed between them. In a world that so often emphasized the differences between humans and wild creatures, today had revealed something else entirely, a shared capacity for love, for protection, for family, a connection that ran deeper than fear, deeper than the artificial boundaries humans had created between themselves and the natural world. Savannah closed her eyes, feeling the mountain breeze on her face. Somewhere in the distance, a mother bear curled around her cubs, keeping them warm and safe through the night. Two mothers, two worlds, and for one extraordinary afternoon, a bridge between them that none would ever forget.